So in the comment sections of my last two videos, I've been getting absolutely spammed for POB codes of the build. And that build would be a self-curse penance brand Occultist. Now I decided to make a quick video on the build and also discuss why I, in a Blade Vortex self-curse meta, rather decide to play penance brand. So let's take a look. So like I've previously said, this video I'm going to be discussing my self-cursed penance brand Occultist. Now if you have no idea what I mean when I say self-curse or buff stealing, go watch the video down in the description, it explains everything you need to know in detail. Now as you can see in this gameplay footage, this is your average self-curse build. The only difference is we use penance brand instead of Blade Vortex. Now why do we use penance brand instead of Blade Vortex? And there are three main reasons. The first reason being, well, with penance brand you're ranged, you don't need to be in melee range of any pack. This makes starting the map and killing bosses a lot safer than it is with Blade Vortex. Secondly, like Blade Vortex, penance brand also has a physical base damage. This means that skills like Hatred are able to boost our damage by a lot. Lastly, gearing. With penance brand you don't need crazy spell bows or crazy synthesis rings. Dual void batteries will do you just fine. Now I know technically you could use void batteries on Blade Vortex as well, but I think you might struggle killing the first few packs of some maps. So apart from self-curse, this build also focuses on power charge stacking and the use of quite a few brand damage medium cluster jewels. Now if you're wondering how we're able to fit so many brand damage medium clusters, that's thanks to the replica Geodra's damning rings added in Heist League. Link to a video in the description that discusses those rings in detail. Now apart from that, this is just a standard self-curse build. I use it to farm all in-game mapping content. I use it for 5-way legions, I use it for heists, I use it for harbinger farming, you name it. The only disclaimer is, this is not a boss killer. You're gonna struggle with doing Uberlab, you're not gonna be able to kill Cyrus or Alder with a setup like this. This build is strictly for mapping, not bossing. And for those of you who are wondering how the build performs on Delirious maps, I ran a few Delirious tests on tier 16s and I was able to do 60 and 80% Delirious maps without any issues. I was able to do a tier 16 100% Delirious map, but it was quite a bit of a struggle and I don't recommend you use this build for 100% Deli farming. At the end of the video I'll leave a clip of how I did that map and you can see for yourself. So this is our level 97 Occultist. Let's take a look at the passive tree. Now like I said, this is a power charge stacking build, so we grab power chargers wherever we can. And we also use brands, so we take all of the important brand nodes. Now something that we need to get out of the way first is that the cluster jewels are not optimized for absolute peak damage. And it's not necessary for them to be. You can go full out and optimize these, but it's not necessary. Since you're a self-curse build, after the first quarter of the map, your sheet DPS is going to be in the tens of millions and you're going to one-tap anything anyway. With this build, I was able to one-tap 100% Delirious tier 16 Kosis, so damage on the tree isn't that important. You want utility on the tree, pretty much. So for the cluster jewels, the large cluster jewels are 8 passives and they're pretty much just AoE damage bases. Nearly any of the notables are going to work out for you pretty well. This one is a lightning damage, I assume. Yes, lightning damage. And as you can see, I just have pretty much whatever. Snowstorm is a really nice one, but as you can see, I don't even use it. And Prismatic Heart is also nice because we are pretty starved on resistances. Now onto the mediums that we use. So in brand builds, it's always important to have brand loyalty on all of your mediums. And as you can see, on all 4 of our mediums, we have brand loyalty. Now, as I've also previously discussed in previous videos, you need Holy Conquest on at least one of your medium nodes when playing Penance brand. This allows the brand to jump around to packs so you actually have clear. So very important, one of your mediums does need to have Holy Conquest. Now for the other nodes on your mediums, you can usually choose between Grand Design and Remarkable. Now all that these do is they give your brands cast speed. Now for those of you wondering about the Penance brand activation calculation mechanic where you need to aim for 20 stacks, like I've said, it doesn't matter at all. You're gonna steal so many buffs that your damage just exceeds the need for this. And so often you steal haste buffs and then you're just overcapping that mechanic anyway. So calculating stacks on these really isn't that necessary. You can go out of your way to do something like that, but I didn't do it in mine, and I was able to do pretty much the end game of PoE currently. So let's take a look at the jewels in the build currently. The first one being a Militant Faith, a High Templar Dominus Militant Faith, and all that this does for us is we get Inner Conviction. That gives us 3% more spell damage per power charge, and the Frenzy Charge thing isn't all that important. Now this is pretty big since we currently sit on, I believe, 9 power charges. This gives us around 27% more spell damage. So this is a nice damage boost pretty much just for the start of the map. After the first few packs this isn't necessary. And then we also have an Intuitive Leap just to free up a few points in this little cluster right here. Now the rest of the jewels are all just rare jewels, and we use them to fix our life and resistances. Now since our build has a lot of unique items, we really need to use all 4 of these slots to try and fix our resistances and our life. And as you can see, even with 4 of them, I am still not completely capped on lightning rays. I could fix it with divines, but I just want to prove the point of how necessary they are. Dude, it sounds like someone's murdering my neighbors. What the hell, man? So for Ascendancies, we start off with Malediction for an additional curse and curse effect. We then also take Profane Bloom, just so that we can apply our hexes to hexproof enemies, and we have the Explode, which is also really nice. Then we go for Forbidden Power. Since we're already scaling so many power charges, this is just a bunch of AoE, a bunch of damage, and even more power charges. And then we also go for Vile Bastion. This is just because sometimes when we do self-curse, we have like 100,000 ES, and this is just a nice way of helping you sustain that ES. Okay, so let's quickly go over the gear. Like I said, we go for dual Void batteries, we have a Solstice Vigil as well, Calm's Roots are mandatory, Shackles are mandatory, and I was really lucky to get these Ellie Weakness on hit ones. I think I bought them on the second day of the league for like 20C. And then we have the Headhunter or a Replica Headhunter, or if you don't have a Headhunter, you could use a Biscos as well. And then we also have the dual Replica Duodray Damning, 20% qualityed with caster modifiers. We then have an Explode chest that has gain max life as ES. It helps us out a little bit with a little bit more effective HP. And then we also have a rare helmet with 30% increased Temp Chains curse effect, with a little bit of resistances and also a bit of strength, which also helps out quite a bit. So onto the flasks, we start off with a Cinder Swallow. Now this is a really nice flask when you're going self-curse because it recovers in percentages and not flat values. And when you have 100,000 energy shield with 30,000 life, it's really nice when you recover values in percentages. We then go for an Aziri's Promise as well. Since we have a physical flat base on Penance brand that then converts to elemental damage, we pretty much double dip here and get both damages as extra chaos, which is quite a little bit of extra damage at the start of a map. Then I have a Taste of Hate, that's also just fizz as extra cold damage and a little bit of reduced physical damage taken, but this should probably be replaced with a rare flask that gives you phasing and that removes poison. Now since we're self-cursing ourselves, not only do the good buffs last longer, but the bad buffs or the debuffs last longer as well. So poison, burning and bleeding are really deadly, and we need to remove all 3 of those. Now on our Quicksilver we do have burning removal, and on our Diamond Flask we do have bleed removal. So I currently don't have a way of removing poison. It hasn't been an issue thus far, but if you're dying to poison quite often, maybe switch out the Taste of Hate for something that removes poison. Now for a quick rundown on the gems that we use. We have a 21 Penance brand, of course, as our main damage ability, linked to Fizz to Lightning to gain a little bit of our physical damage as extra lightning, and to convert the last 50% of our physical damage to lightning, since Penance brand already converts half. We then have an Anomalous Swift brand. Now this just increases attach duration and decreases detach duration, but in all honesty I played without an Anomalous, just used a normal Swift brand up until last night when I decided to switch these over for the video. And then I have a Control Destruction and Power Charge on Critical Strike linked to an Inspiration. In our ones we have a Vol Grace. Now we don't reserve Grace, we don't have Grace active, we only use the Vol Grace. Since we're self-cursing, Vol Grace and Vol Haste last very long if we use them, so that's why we have this here. We have a Cast on Death Portal, but as you can see I'm nearly 40% into level 98, so I don't die that often since I've fixed the resistances. In our shackles, we don't really have that much of an option. We have Temp Chains linked to a Hex Touch support that gets applied by Herald of Thunder, and I have an increased duration here just because these bad boys are already corrupted. You could probably go for a Enhance, and then you could probably fix up your curse effect using that. That's one way you could go. In our helmet, we have Hatred, only a level 20 Hatred, linked to a level 3 Enlighten, and a level 20 Herald of Ash. Now, together with these 3 points right here on our tree, I'm barely able to cast Penance Brand. As you can see, my mana is barely enough to cast Penance Brand. And then in our other one, we just have a max level Brand Recall linked to a level 1 Arcane Surge and Flame Dash. Now, all that this does is whenever we have a brand out and we left click, you can see that we gain Arcane Surge because our Brand Recall is on left click. And if we Flame Dash, we also gain Arcane Surge. Something that I also want to say is when it comes to your Vol Grace and your Vol Haste, they don't need to be a specific level. The higher the better, but as soon as you run out of dex requirement to level them further, just stop. You don't need to min-max your dex just to get these to level 20. The higher they are, the more they're gonna help, but it really doesn't make that big of a difference. And for a little extra, originally I didn't have the Headhunter initially, and so I used Inspired Learnings. I had one Inspired Learning right here and one Inspired Learning right here. Now, to free up a few points to grab these other nodes, I usually just unspec these extra little life nodes that we have laying around. So we lose a little bit of life, but then we can fit in Inspired Learnings and do the whole self-curse thing without needing a Headhunter. And then for the last few miscellaneous things, for the Pantheons, now my Pantheons are pretty much never upgraded. I feel that this is a somewhat outdated mechanic, but we have Arakali for reduced damage over time. Upgrading this to Chaos Raise against damage over time would also be nice, but I just haven't bothered. And then we also have Unaffected by Burning Ground, which is really, really nice in some of these juicy maps. And then for our Anoint, we anoint Runesmith. It's just the most expensive oil is going to be a silver oil, so this is a really, really cheap anoint. And then for Bandits, I currently still have Alira. You could drop Alira if your gear is good enough and you're able to fix your resistances, but currently I still need Alira's resistances. Penance Brand has become my go-to skill for self-curse. It used to be Blade Vortex, but I really feel that Penance Brand has a few advantages and is really, really competitive to the whole Blade Vortex playstyle. So if you're at all curious about trying Penance Brand self-curse, I really recommend you do give it a try. Now, as I promised, I'm going to leave you with my attempt of the 100% Delirious tier 16 map, so you can see how I succeed as well as how I fail. Now, bear in mind that this gear and the cluster jewels that I'm currently using, as well as my skill gems, are definitely not optimized. I don't even think most of my gems are qualityed or level 21. So I'm really interested to see how far this build can go, and I definitely think that it would be able to farm 100% Delirious maps quite smoothly if you invest more into it. I definitely am not going to invest more into this, as I really despise the 100% Delirious sort of playstyle. It's just not fun for me. But if anyone else decides to invest and min-max this, I'd be really interested to see the results. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching the video right to the end. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed the content and you want to subscribe, maybe consider that. And if you want to check out the stream, link in the description down below. But that's it from me. I'm Sniz, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.